Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. I am your host, Craig DeLuz. This is my coffee. That's my backup coffee, just in case I need a little bit more juice to get going. But I've got you here. So who needs juice when I got you? So please remember to like and share and subscribe to our video feeds, whether on YouTube or on Facebook. Remember to follow us on Facebook so that you can get all of our action alerts, know what's going on, know where the fight is taking place, in what state, in what city, in what county, and on what issue. So also, please remember, if you guys get a chance, please remember to visit our gear store, fpcgear.com. That's fpcgear.com. This is where you can get all sorts of cool T-shirts and whatnot, some really cool swag, but primarily in support of the Second Amendment. Know that every dollar that you donate will go to help support the work of the Firearms Policy Coalition. So kick in, help us out. Enough said. So let's get into today's topic. Now, there are plenty of places where one can go in order to get information and have discussion and debate, yada, 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 relating to the Second Amendment and relating to how we can address the issue of gun violence in our country. Interestingly, though, here in California, a local channel decided that they were going to go to the source of gun violence and ask them, how do we address the issue of gun violence? So they decided to go into San Quentin. That's right, San Quentin, and ask the inmates who were there for their perspective on gun control. And needless to say, much like the criminals in the California state legislature, they had a perspective that some of them had a perspective that was not necessarily in line with freedom or liberty or supporting the Second Amendment. Check it out.
Alan Martin went behind the walls of San Quentin asking men convicted of murder and attempted murder what they would do about gun violence.
You got people with ability to carry guns that don't know how to use them. Just for protection, I would have to assume.
Patrick Fletcher killed a man in Oakland in 1984. He thinks some gun control is absolutely necessary.
AR-15s, they don't have no place in our society. That's too much firepower just to be on the streets.
I've been a victim of gun violence, and also I've been an offender on gun violence that has me here today.
Gary Robeson has been in prison 20 years after murdering a man in Richmond.
No one gets up early in the morning and say, well, I'm going to go kill someone, but that's actually what happens when you have a gun. That's what you have a gun for.
ARs, he says, should be banned.
If you come in to say, hey, I want to buy an AR-15, okay, you should be red flag. Why do you need to buy this AR-15?
When there's a limit that, hey, you can buy one or two, and then if you try to buy more than that, then it needs to be reported. You have to go the extra mile and understand why you're asking for a third large capacity weapon.
Lonnie Morris believes the Second Amendment leaves room for limiting gun ownership.
You have a right to bear arms, and then it's given to us as a society to determine what that amount of arms are. And I think in this society, in this day and time, young people are saying that there shouldn't be so many arms. I don't think.
And Patrick Fletcher would go further than that.
Bottom line, guns kill, and the best thing you can do is keep them out your hand.
So, all right, so let's talk real quick about some of the perspectives that were offered by some of these folks. So you had the idea from this gentleman that he was like, well, if you want an AR-15, well, then you must be up to something evil. You need to be red flagged. Now, maybe it's just me, but that seems to work so directly contrary to due process, so directly contrary to the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment was, when the Second Amendment was written, it was about the firearms that were in common and in regular use during that time. And quite frankly, the AR-15 is the most commonly owned and commonly used firearm of our time. Now, mind you, I will also note this. This is an individual who's been in jail before most of the gun control that exists in California, Yeah, this guy was in jail before most of that stuff was put in place. In fact, most of these guys have been in jail longer than most of the gun control. So I'm finding it very difficult to believe that since they haven't been able to possess a firearm during their incarceration in San Quentin, that they're really up on the gun laws. But once again, these are guys, this is coming from the criminal's mouth. They're saying, well, I don't know why you need this. I don't know why you need this. Well, first of all, Mr. Inmate, sir, it's not called the Bill of Rights. I mean, it's not called the Bill of Needs. It's called the Bill of Rights, meaning you have a right. You have a right to be able to defend yourself. And if the person who's coming to attack you has a certain weapon, should you really be relegated to having a single-shot musket? Because in their eyes, that's the only thing that is really covered by the Second Amendment. You also notice that there was an individual who talked about limiting the number of firearms that one is able to purchase. So in other words, he's questioning, well, why do you need this? Once again, it comes back to why do you need this? Once again, it ain't got nothing to do with need. It has to do with the right to be able to keep and bear arms. Now, I've always found it odd that someone wants to limit the number of firearms that you can own, in particular when the most firearms that you can use at any one given time is 2, unless you learn how to pull a trigger with your toes. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, even the shooting that took place in Las Vegas, most of the firearms that he had purchased, and people talk about, he had amassed an arsenal. Most of those firearms were not even used in the shooting. So why does it matter if someone has 25 firearms if 1 or 2 are used in the shooting? See, because once again, their goal is not to reduce gun violence. Their goal is to get rid of guns. And in the case of most of these criminals, they want to make sure that they have the most powerful weapon, the most powerful firearm. This is a guy who also said, well, if you have a gun, you must want to kill somebody. I'm sorry, that was the other guy. If you have a gun, you must want to kill somebody. That's the only reason that you could have to want to own a gun or have or possess a firearm. Forget the fact that maybe, just maybe, I want to have or possess a firearm so that I can defend myself from you, Mr. Inmate, from you, Mr. Convicted Murderer. Maybe you want to stop and think about that. Maybe it ain't about me. It's not about what I want. It's about the fact that I know you are out there and you could care less about my life. And you will do whatever you can to rob me, to steal from me, or to take from me. Now, mind you, that was kind of the main point that was made by a lot of these folks. But what was really interesting, and here was the thing, and this is where you can tell that they had one perspective, that they had obviously spent a lot of time listening to the liberal mantra. But when you actually get down to where they got their firearms, how they got their firearms, and how criminals in general, how most guns wind up used in crimes, they also had a very detailed understanding of that aspect of it. Check it out.
Behind the historic walls of San Quentin are scores of men who wrote their life stories by committing acts of violence, including murder. Ask almost any one of them how to get a gun.
Back of a trunk, $600. Easy. It's easy as having the money.
I got the money legally, hanging out in the street corner, so I was able to get it.
If you want to get a gun in America, you're going to get a gun in America.
No, it was not registered or any background check. I just bought it for somebody on the streets.
Morris has been in prison for 40 years. The 67-year-old is one of a handful of San Quentin inmates who agreed to be interviewed about gun control.
People that's involved in the criminal lifestyle don't go to gun shows or go to gun stores and buy guns for the most part.
Marky Carter tried to shoot and kill 3 people in 1994. He sees gun control as too little too late.
It's too easy to buy a gun. I can get out right now, and I ain't never been out here nowhere up this way. But if I had $500 right now, I can get me a gun just like that.
Easy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But Margie says because there are so many guns, you need a gun.
You gotta be strapped because you don't never know who's gonna try to rob you or kill you.
At 19, Hugh Nguyen was a San Jose gang member. Convicted of second-degree murder, he's done 18 years of a 23-to-life sentence. He bought his guns from other gang members and says making guns harder to get will only feed the black market.
Because they would triple the price now. They know whether it's hard to get guns now. So those gang or those criminal people that want to do criminal things, they would go to the black market and purchase the gun, and they're willing to pay triple price for the gun.
And they'll still get it.
Yeah.
Did I ever think I was going to be in prison? Yeah.
Brandon Riddle Terrell was chased by police across 3 counties one night in 2012 after he stabbed a man to death near Auburn.
If I wanted a gun, I knew people who sold guns, who stole guns.
The Petaluma man says gun laws wouldn't stop him from getting a gun.
The gang lifestyle, the street lifestyle, there's guns all over the place available, and none of them are registered. They're all stolen.
See, so the point that was being made here, now mind you, none of these guys went to gun stores to buy their guns. None of them had background checks done. None of them bothered with serial. I mean, all of these laws, none of them were restricted by the number of firearms that you could be able to own at all. So think about that. Even the people who are committing the crimes are telling you, yeah, no, none of these laws apply because we didn't follow the law. But that doesn't make any sense to these policymakers because, well, clearly criminals follow the law, don't they? Oh, it is beyond infuriating because ultimately what happens is that you wind up going after law-abiding citizens. You wind up putting restrictions on law-abiding citizens' ability to be able to access or to be able to own or possess an item. Why? Because you blame the item. You blame the item. You blame this. And because you blame that, well, now you have to restrict my right to have that. When in all actuality, it really comes down to a people issue. And I'm not just talking about gun violence. I'm talking about violence and how you address the issue of violence. And even these guys know and understand that this is a people issue.
You feel powerful when you have a gun.
Rasan Thomas is in for life, convicted of second-degree murder when he was 29.
I shot 2 people in a parking lot in Los Angeles.
Controlling guns, he says, won't control the killing.
If a guy has a 9mm instead of an AR-15, then maybe kill 7 people instead of 15, but it doesn't stop it.
Rasan mentors at-risk kids who visit San Quentin, and he believes the way to stop shootings is to reach kids who think like he did.
If somebody's trying to take something from you, you shoot them, right? If somebody tries to harm your family, you don't go to the police, you handle court in the street.
I end up shooting an innocent man and taking his life.
Michael Webb also talks to teenagers who come to San Quentin. At 17, he used a gun to commit murder. He'll be 47 later this month and doesn't think banning large-capacity firearms is the answer.
There's an underlying issue that they haven't addressed, and this makes them feel some type of power that they have this type of weapon. And then when you use it, it's like, yeah, I want you to know I'm bad.
See, what these guys are telling you is that there's a problem. There's a devaluation of human life, and there is this need for people to feel a certain way. So why don't we do the things that we need to do in order to address those issues? Why don't we address the people issues? You know, instead of, for example, instead of with suicide, instead of saying, well, we need to get rid of guns so that people won't commit suicide, well, guess what? People are still going to commit suicide. They're just going to find another way to do it. So why not address the issues that are leading people, the fundamental basic issues that are leading people to want to commit suicide? In these particular cases, you're talking about people who largely are growing up in communities that are low income. If there are parents, chances are there's no fatherhood. There's no father there to speak of. There's no real moral center or moral base to help people understand and value, to show them that there's value in them. And if they don't value themselves, then how are they then going to turn on and value the lives of others? If they're growing up in a society that does not, where there is no value, there's no value in human life, then there's no value in, then there's nothing to take human life. And so whether or not they have a gun, if they don't have a gun, guess what? They'll use knives. If they don't have knives, they'll use boards. If they don't have boards, they'll use their hands. And all of these things, it is a people issue. A lot of people don't realize 80 to 90% of all firearm violence, of all gun violence, is gang or drug related. It occurs in low-income communities where people feel like they got no other choice, or at least they've been told they have no other choice. So why not listen to them? Why not listen to the people who are in jail, who've committed those things? You know, they get that it's a people issue. So why not listen? You know, I find it interesting because, you know, these are not the only, you know, criminals that have had been the opportunity to give an input when it comes to the issue of gun control. You know, so once again, I know that these guys here at KPIX in the Bay Area, I know they think they're being original, but they're not being original because there have been other criminals who have had much greater say when it comes to gun control. Take, for example, Leland Yee, who is in jail for, for gun running. Former state senator in California, Leland Yee. I don't know that he's in the same prison as these gentlemen because I don't think he's in San Quentin. But former state senator Leland Yee. Now this individual, former Stockton Mayor Silva, he also is in jail for a number of things, including firearms related charges, as his firearm was found or used in a shooting. But once again, another former politician turned criminal, anti-gun politician. He was a member of the Mayors Against Illegal Guns, unless of course it was his own gun. Then he was okay with that. But then there's also former state senator Ron Calderon. Here's another convicted criminal that had an impact on gun policy. And these are all individuals who had a chance to vote on gun policy. And unfortunately, these criminals all voted to ban guns. Anyway, interesting little take when it's all said and done. That's going to be it today, folks, for today's Coffee with Craig. I thank you guys so much for tuning in and for being a part of the fight for our civil rights. Please remember, like and share this video feed. Let people know about the Firearms Policy Coalition. We are the home in the fight for civil rights. Remember, you got to use them or you're going to lose them. We'll talk to you later.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.